On the Sunday Times Politics Weekly this week, we are joined by none other than the recently elected ANC Youth League president. He goes by the name of Collen Malatji, a 30-year-old young lion who has served in basically all spheres of government, from local government up until the National Assembly. Now, he unpacks with us his political journey and his activism thus far, what he brings to the renewal of the ANC Youth League, and what are the issues that he seeks to champion within the ranks of the ruling party. And it's a pleasure to have you. Thank you for your time. So, President, firstly, congratulations on your unopposed election. I think it has been quite some time that the Youth League has not been as active without an elected structure, and I think a lot of young ANC members are happy with the outcomes that they now have a leadership after quite a hiatus. So briefly introduce yourself to us. Who is Collen Malatji, and what can the young people of this country expect from him?
Collen Malatji is a young man from Tembisa who later moved to Germiston area, and my family background are from different areas. My mother is from Kwandebele, my father is from Tafelkop. Now I've got exposure of both the areas. I'm a youth activist, started politics as early as 13 years. I led different youth formation, including COSAS, as a former president of COSAS, when I led at almost all levels. I led SASCO at the national level also, and now I'm leading the ANC Youth League. I was also given the responsibility to coordinate the Youth League into a conference. Now, that's Collen Malatji.
All right. Take me through your journey in your political activism. Take me through the transition from being a COSAS leader to leading in SASCO, where your core audience or supporters are students, to where you're now leading the Youth League structures, prior to this election, and also your journey briefly as a member of parliament. Take me through the transition and how you have been entrusted with leading in these different circles and areas of life which sort of service different constituencies.
Look, what I can confirm is that I did not have a childhood. Because if you have been at the age of 13 years, 14 years, holding a region as a regional secretary of COSAS, it means that most of the time you're in meetings, and at that time you're dealing with very old people, because COSAS at that time, there were a lot of people who were in matric, and at that time I'm in grade 7 and going to grade 8, and I'm their lead at that time as a regional secretary. It was a difficult one, but also I was still a rough diamond. Then COSAS teaches you a high level of radicalism, and you might not know all of the issues, but you want things to be done now. You're impatient with everything, and you transition to becoming a president of COSAS. You continue that radicalism. And I led at a time as a president of COSAS when the Youth League was radicalized on the battle for economic freedom in their lifetime. And I'm part of that generation that led to the Youth League to mold that battle. Even when others were expelled and we moved out, we were part of the team that was fighting very hard. That youth must be left behind, and they must not be kicked out of the ANC. And we still say that was the worst decision ever, because we saw what happened post that. Transition to SASCO, yes, after COSAS, I matriculated, went to varsity, started at the University of Johannesburg. Started there when I got elected in SASCO, I was in the University of Johannesburg. Then later on, when I was done in the University of Johannesburg, moved to Wits University to study there. I don't think I was strongly active in SASCO. I think I was the politics of the Youth League, I was already overexposed by that time, unlike any normal SASCO student. Because by the time I went to varsity, I was already a deputy chair of a region of the ANC Youth League. And I was already dealing with complex issues of the Youth League, of employed and unemployed youth, young professionals, and now the dynamism that came with it was now. By the time I was in the initiative of SASCO, I was already so experienced in student politics and already in the. Now I always say that my activism in SASCO was just to share experience, but I was not a strong activist of SASCO. I think I was brought into the NEC of SASCO to share that experience I got from COSAS and of the ANC Youth League, because by the time I was in varsity, I was already overexposed. I was already a young person with many responsibilities, deployed also in different responsibilities in government. I was not a normal student. I always say that I was a student that was working and studying, because I was already in the provincial government, later national government, and then local government. I always say I've worked in all spheres of government. I've worked in national government, I've worked in provincial government, I've worked in local government. I've got experiences in all those sectors. Ultimately end up in parliament. Parliament experience was a new experience. Looking at parliament from far, you might think it's an easy platform. It's a very complex platform, making laws. You come into parliament that has got people who have been there from 94. You expected to perform at their level. And also there's this hype that young people want to go to parliament, and there's this hype that they must fail. So that it's proven that they can't do anything here. They're not experienced to be here. So that no any other young person goes there. If they don't give you a lot of work to do to prove yourself, it's a difficult terrain to learn. There's a lot of work to do. They're making laws not easy. You're expected to make laws, do public hearings. I'm a whip of a committee of human settlement. Human settlement is a complex issue. Remember, I used to specialize in education. Now I'm moved from where I'm an expert to a new terrain. Where I'm comfortable to a new terrain of human settlement, a space I've never been in, because even in local government, I was in environment and waste. I've never been to human, and when I go there with the responsibility of being a whip. Now you can imagine it was a very difficult. Young people learn very fast. But what I want to emphasize is that with my experience, that young people must go to parliament. I'm sure. Now, part of the things I'm pushing very hard is that there must be a continuity of young people. Those who are already there, they must not be removed out of that space. There must be an addition of others. If you know, I've made a pronouncement that we need 50% of young people in that parliament, of different generations, at least up to 40 years, because there's a missing youth that no one speaks about. The youth.
And how was that proclamation received?
Obviously, it's going to be a very huge contest.
Because you made it publicly. I don't think in a formal structure of the ANC, but yeah.
I've also made the formal structure of the ANC
Okay,
internally.
is it?
Yeah, I did that, but it's going to get a serious resistance. But the ANC is a contested terrain.
Sure.
We are going to go and fight for it, that resolution. But the argument I want to raise that there's a youth bracket that is above 35 as per the constitution, the 36 to 40 years. And no one speaks about them. There's no jobs for them, for that youth.
They're the missing middle.
They're the missing middle in simple terms. They're too young to be old. They're too old to be young.
Yes.
Now that is a problem. And when we raise that issue, that they must be accommodated in that 50% of your representation, because the ones who are 50 and above, they don't see them as old. They see them as the youth. Ourselves, we see them as old, one of 35. Now we need to find a way, because of high level of inequalities in this country and all of those issues. They're highly affected. But most of them, you'll find that the complete varsity around age of 33, 34. When they start looking for jobs, they're 35. It becomes difficult because of different reasons that are known in this country. But those are areas that when we made the pronouncement, we're going to accommodate them. We're not only speaking about parliament, we're speaking about characters of power. Young people must be directors, young people must be everywhere in the private sector. They must be given executive responsibilities. We want to take charge of our own country, because that's the only way we want to shape it. But only the youth league must raise that voice, because if there's no voice that is raised, the old will never say they're tired. That's what I wanted to raise.
Yeah. I'm interested in this issue of your missing middle. Some might argue that we already have a lot on your shoulders with the current under 35 youth that are unemployed. Is it fair to take on this grouping as well, on top of the burden that you already have of advocating for the employment and the upskilling and the opportunities of young people which are under 35? Is it fair to say that you're also going to agitate for this missing middle? I know they are a marginalized community, as you say, but you already have a mammoth task ahead of you. Are you going to be able to deal with advocating not only for your constituency, but also this additional grouping that you've identified?
Look, it's a very huge task. But if we restructure the economy correctly, we might be able to accommodate all of them. We went to our conference, and part of the resolution we took is the reindustrialization. There's a lot of economies that should have long collapsed if they have not. Look at China, for example. They've reindustrialized, and their biggest product is labor. And that's where we are now. Look, we've got the materials for it. We've got the biggest concentration of platinum. We've got the good weather for processing agriculture. Now, if we reindustrialize and be selfish as a country and say, look, a lot of our youth are running around the streets. We must reskill them. We must create corridors of industries, agriculture. You go to Limpopo, Mpumalanga, it's a big agriculture areas. We force industries there to set up factories for processing and all of those things. I can tell you now, with the right reskilling and the right credit, we will be able to employ all of those people. The burden must not only be left at government, it must be shared by everyone, because we're all in this country and all want the country to be right. Now, I believe this country, with the blessings we have, being the gateway of Africa alone, creates new opportunities. If we are deliberate about it, we will be able to create employment to a point where we can even import employment. There are countries that import labor because of they import labor because everyone in their country is working, and everyone is and we have the capacity to do that. That's why we need to push harder. I think the elders must understand, those who are now in power, that if you don't do that, the reality is that it's a ticking bomb. This country will go down to a train. The youth will be in drugs. They'll revolt. They'll burn buildings. Now we need to understand that even our partners, our trade partners we have, we need to make them understand that at the stage we are in, we need to revive our secondary industry. It's urgent. It's no longer critical now. It's urgent, because if you don't revive the secondary industry, and we do have factories. They're closing down. We need to go back. We need to reinvest, inject new resources and funds on those things. I can tell you now, if you do that correctly, most of the funds that we take on social grants and all of those things, if everyone is employed, we'll have enough to reinvest in other activities in this country. ANC has got a lot of young people. The organization I belong to and lead in the Youth League, in Parliament, legislature, more than many other opposition parties claim that they have young people. We've checked and we've realized that it's not true. The problem is that there's a hangover that associates the youth with ill discipline, the youth with lack of productivity and focus, and the youth are not ready to take this. There's a fear that if you give these young people this responsibility, they'll take the country to the ground.
And what fuels this fear? Where is it stemming from?
I think those that participated in the liberation of this country, they're still holding on. They don't believe that anyone else can do it correctly better than them. It's an attachment issue, because everywhere you have seen young people have done well. We've got many young people in Parliament who are doing very well. They're working very hard in public. You've got Bono Pendulos. You've got Bofasias in legislature. You've got many other young people who are doing well. Now, those young people, they're doing very well and no one speaks about them because they're doing way better than those that have been there longer. It's a hangover. If someone at the age of over 67 still believes they can go back to Parliament because they don't believe anyone else can do the work, it's an attachment issue. There's no one below the age of 35 years that has led the youth formation longer than me. That alone is an advantage. I went to this contest with the infrastructure I've built for the past 10 years. Now, anyone that comes in that time, it might be very difficult. But also the people that were stronger contenders were affected by age and many other issues. Now, those that came in, it was too late, to launch a national campaign 3 months into to a conference against someone who's been campaigning since 2018.
For many years, yeah.
Now, I think that was an unfair. That's why when people are speaking about heavy hands of it, I was shocked. What are they talking about? Because I've campaigned since 2018 to be president of the ANC Youth League. Conference were postponed. There was COVID-19. There was many other issues. Now, where were these elders that time? They were not there. Some of them were elected post me campaigning. Now, it's just a propaganda that has been created to create. But no one is questioning whether Collen has been there or not. Whether Collen is capable to lead the Youth League or not. They always mention the SG, that the SG is putting his hand in my things and blah, blah, blah. But the fundamental comment is that when the SG was exiting as a president of the ANC Youth League in Mangaung Conference 2008, I was a branch secretary of the ANC Youth League. I was the youngest delegate in that conference. Now, I'm saying, we're speaking about different generations that I've belonged to, and one speaks about that history. Obviously, a lot of graduates of the Youth League are bound to likely to associate with me because in the generation that is left, I'm the only one that they know so far that I've associated with, that they know my politics. And even those that differ with me, they differ with me because they know me.
Sure.
Maybe they don't like my style of leadership. Now, those who agree with me and those who differ with me are people that know me. That's why I also accept criticism from those who differ with me and accept support from the support, because those are people that have spent time with me. Now, unlike the ones that have arrived who were affected by disbandments of the Youth League, a lot of young people who joined the Youth League post-2013 were highly affected. They were never really been exposed to a vibrant Youth League.
Yeah.
Now, they are getting to a Youth League that, with the Collen that has been in both phases. I've seen a vibrant Youth League, and I've seen the Youth League go down. I've seen the Youth League being dissolved. I've seen
phases,
teams.
yes.
Yeah, I've seen different phases of the Youth League, and now you then, because the Youth League is 14 to 35, then there are young people who were never exposed. Some of them were maybe in varsity at that time. After varsity, they went back to the communities.
Sure. And
when they decided to be involved in community politics and join the Youth League. They're contesting against someone who's been there. Those are now the hand issue. It's a non-starter. The nomination of branch was clear. I got over 2,000 nominations of all branches in South Africa. A person was contesting to get about 68 branches. Now, there's no way less of ANC SG can put hands in 2,000 and something branches. He did not even get those nominations for himself to be elected as SG.
Yeah,
now,
in December,
how does he get it for me when he can't get it for himself?
Sure.
I'm just saying those are part of the areas that I'm trying to say. It's a myth created by people who want to create want to erase history and put me in a position like someone who's a puppet of elders. Those people are not even elders. They're my peers, They might be older than me by age, but I've served in them in their youth days. We need to get the resources in the hands of the majority. Those are my politics until the term ends. And those are politics that have been neglected in the Youth League after the disbandment of the Youth League, because there was fear instilled that if you dare say this thing, it means you are EFF. Now, everyone was scared to speak the language, because when that language was really the language of the Youth League, we were there in 2011 ourselves. We were part of the team that came up with these ideas of the common freedom in our lifetime. It was a baby of the ANC Youth League. The Youth League ran with that thing. We even walked, to show how much we committed. We walked to the JSE, walked to the union building, fighting for all those things. It was our voices. If you have my old records when I was still president of COSAS, you'll get that has always been our language. But that fear was instilled. Then people are scared to speak about it anymore. And it was owned now somewhere else where it's not supposed to be owned. Now we say,
now you're brave enough to bring it back within the ranks of the ANC.
Yeah, must bring it back within the ranks of the ANC. The generation that is in the ANC now is the generation that belongs to the... We've succeeded in Nazareth. We've removed those who don't believe in our agenda. We've instilled an agenda of economic freedom fighters there. We've removed 36 ANC members. I don't know if you've seen how youthful is the ANC of the ANC, and people don't speak about it. We've succeeded. We've removed 36 old ANC members and still the new generation. We must not make a mistake of thinking the ANC is not aware that if it does not move faster, we'll go out of power.
Okay.
The ANC is well aware that if you don't move on these issues, the people of South Africa have lost patience, and they'll make big mistakes. They'll vote for political parties that don't care about them. Look at in Tshwane, for example. The DA doesn't service townships. Clear. It's evidence. You go where whatever the ANC have been doing, the gains are reversed. We're doing subsidies. We're subsidizing people with water. We're subsidizing people with electricity. Go to Ekurhuleni, remove all of those subsidies. It's only when people felt that, my electricity was subsidized at this percentage by the ANC government. Now, those ones are running a business. They don't care about this thing of saying that, no, there's a social contract, there's a high level of inequalities. They're running a business. But the biggest problem is in administration. That is number one. There's two problems the country is facing outside the issue of politicians. Is the administration that is led by people who are not ready to serve. Because when you work for government, you're not employed. You are a servant, a public servant. Now, when you're a public servant, it means you go overboard to resolve problems of the country. That is the role of a public servant.
Sure.
You go. That's why you're not saying you're employed. No, you're a public servant. Now, it means that there's no... Even means you must wake up at night to come to the office so that service that time must do that. Yeah? The other people that are not dealing with, you're not disciplining the private sector. The private sector is not coming on board in this country. They're comfortable in their own corner. They don't care. They are obsessed about the maximization of profit. And no one speaks about that. Because they're obsessed about the maximization of profit. Now, we have not been able to discipline them. You'll find a job that's supposed to be done by 10 people is done by one person. You go to retail. Our young people are exploited in retail. A person opens a shop, security, later on cleans the shop, does stock taking, then later on is a tailor. Now, what is that? Is that not exploitation? That is a job of 4 people.
Sure.
Now, because the private sector want to maximize profit, they do all of these things. I'm saying people are overworked and underpaid in our own country, and we can't be quiet about those things. Now we need the labor department to come in. I'm saying that is where politicians must take charge as politicians. We can't allow capital to do as they want in our own country when our people have voted for us to take care for this country on their behalf. Now we can't be apologetic in those areas.
There's a heavy pushback against cadre deployment, and to me it sounds like that's what you're advocating for. Distinguish this idea for me.
It's reactionary to push back cadre deployment. There's no political party that's not doing cadre deployment. You go anywhere, even those who are saying against cadre deployment, go and check where they're governing, who they're deploying. They've deployed people in office who don't even matric. They've deployed somebody's certificate of bodybuilding and to be a chief of staff in the municipality. You don't speak about those things.
Yeah.
I'm saying there's no political party anywhere in the world that will want people to be there and not drive their agenda, because we are elected on our manifesto. Now, if you are employed in our departments, you are employed to implement our manifesto.
Sure.
You can't go, we're given majority vote to do that. Now, you can't come yourself and say you want to implement a DA manifesto in ANC-led government. It doesn't make sense. And I'm going to emphasize this thing. The biggest mistake the ANC government did was not to vet who comes into their system. There's no way. It can't
and
be
this
free for
vetting
all.
process, would it include checking for an ANC membership?
No, it doesn't have to be an ANC membership. We need to have an understanding that you are conscientized enough to understand the agenda. You don't have to be an ANC active member. We're saying that, no, we need to understand. You need to share the same vision with us. That is the most important thing. You need to know what are we driving. If we're saying one nation building, what is that? You need to understand all of our programs. If we're saying, now we don't need someone who will be in our own chair, but contesting the policies the ANC wants to implement.
Okay.
You must be fired for that. If I become a president of the Guard, I've got a DG who does not believe in my policies. What is it doing in my office?
Let's talk local government. You've mentioned that you have experience there. What we're seeing unfolding in our municipalities and with coalition arrangements has been quite disheartening, to say the least, especially on the part of residents who are eagerly waiting for services and quite frankly don't care about this power sharing and power play and these power grabs that we're seeing unfolding among the political parties and the instability that we're seeing there. What is your view on coalitions in the metros, particularly among the different political parties? Who do you think the ANC is better suited to work with? Who do you think they should stay away from? And hopefully you'll take me through this view, not only from a municipal level, but also nationally.
Look, I'm of a strong view that whoever gets majority must govern, so that it takes responsibility of their own municipalities or national government. Partnerships don't work. Can give you an example. When you call an Imbizo, let's say in Kurene, for example, or the EFF